nation's first digital college radio station.
We have a translation airlock on their audio signal. We're taking over this conversation now.
You're listening to KRUI, Iowa City Sound Alternative.
There's a giant inside you who is really getting tired of your I'm just a small person game. There's nothing small about your spirit. Hello, Iowa City. You're listening to KRUI. It's 89.7 FM on your radio, krui.fm streaming online. My name is Justin Comer. You are listening to iHearIC Radio episode number 82. This show's about local music, and sometimes it's about other things too. Today I have two guests, and before I bring them in, I'm going to read some quick biographical information so you know a little bit about who you're hearing from. Jonathan Wilson's works have been performed at the Ann Arbor Film Festival, European Media Art Festival, the Experimental Superstars Film Festival, the Big Muddy Film Festival, ICMC, Seamus, NYCEMF, NSEME, the Iowa Music Teachers Association State Conference, and the Midwest Composers Symposium. He is the winner of the 2014 Iowa Music Teachers Association Composition Competition. Jonathan has studied composition with Lawrence Fritz, Josh Levine, David Gomper, James Romig, James Caldwell, Paul Paccioni, and John Cooper. In addition, studies in conducting have been taken under Richard Huey and Mike Fansler. Jonathan is a member of Society of Composers Incorporated, Seamus ICMA, Iowa Composers Forum, and American Composers Forum. Would you like to say hello real quick, John?
Hello, Justin, and welcome everybody to those who are listening. Hello.
Welcome back to the show, John.
Yes, thank you. It's great to be back.
You have appeared twice before.
Yes, indeed.
Yes,
that's true.
This is the third time for John.
It is. And let me read your bio real quick. Joseph Norman recently completed the doctoral degree in music composition at the University of Iowa, where he also had been research assistant, composer, and sound technician to the Department of Dance for 3 years. Dr. Norman was advised by Dr. David Gomper. Previously, Dr. Norman studied with Dr. Joshua Levine, Dr. Nomi Epstein, and Dr. Lawrence Fritz. Dr. Norman's music has been performed at the Exchange of Midwest Collegiate Composers UMKC and University of Colorado in Boulder, the Midwest Composers Symposium in the University of Michigan, and the Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, SCI, at the University of Iowa, and the Alba Music Festival in Alba, Italy. Welcome to Joseph Norman. Let me see if that mic is picking you up.
Am I being picked up?
You are being picked up. Hello,
Excellent.
Joe, and welcome to the show for your first appearance.
Yes, I feel picked up.
Good.
Hello, Joe.
Hey, before
John
we
just picked me up actually on the way here.
Oh, did he?
We haven't met before. This
Part
is the first.
All right, so Joe
I was on
is
the
here.
side of the road, you know.
Yeah. Before we get too far into the episode, I would just like to briefly announce that I have booked the venues and the dates for the iHearIC concert series for the fall 2019 season. Will be at Trumpet Blossom on August 30th, October 25th, and December 13th, and will be at The Mill September 26th and November 21st. All of those shows begin at 9 p.m. You can learn more at iHearIC.com. Okay, let's get into the show. So, you guys brought some music gear with you, and I believe you have a name for your musical duo. Is that correct?
We came up with one finally. Aligned at Variance.
Aligned at Variance.
Yes.
Where does that name come from?
It's one of those names I don't think you would get right off the bat at first, because you'd think, well, where do those words come from?
I disagree with John.
Joe, come on.
We need conflict. That makes good radio.
Well,
This is what
interestingly
creates,
enough,
the music.
aligned at variance, part of the name has to do with conflict, things that are in opposition to each other.
Okay.
Basically, where the name came from itself, it was something that Joe and I were bouncing back and forth because we had been playing for quite a while, and yet we didn't have really a name for ourselves. So we, at one point, Joe just suggested, let's just cycle words back to each other. And
Word association.
Word association, basically. And then we came up with the concept of basically parallel lines that intersect, which, of course, if you know
It's
your,
impossible.
your
Yeah.
mathematics, two parallel lines, it's impossible for them to intersect. Because
That's the definition of parallel.
That's the definition of parallel, right?
They never meet.
So there's that conflict in there. So we kind of reworked the meaning behind that text or that concept into aligned at variance.
Well, it speaks to sort of some oppositions, even though those are things that don't coexist. They're things that can kind of coexist, at least musically. There are moments where we might be together, we might be communicating, or we might be opposing each other in one form or another. And those are part of I think they're representative of a larger dynamic of just human existence, right? We're never just one thing at any one time. We have things that conflict within us, and sometimes we are capable of doing good, bad, or opposite things of opposite values at any given time, because we are dynamic people and we create dynamic music, I think, or just make sounds and assign meaning later.
Sure, yeah. That's how I do it usually.
Yeah. And I
And
think
the stuff that you guys have been doing together is all improvised, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, correct. Yeah. We always seem to go with the flow most of the time.
Well, or against the flow, it depends.
Or against the flow.
But there is a flow.
Yes. But I think in the process of performing and even just coming up with ideas for performing, we're often, Joe and I are often talking back and forth, in an endless game of questioning, like, what if, what about this, how about this, trying out different things and seeing if we can find ways to, blend together into a state of oneness, basically, taking two divergent strands of thought and coalescing them together.
Okay, so that's where the alignment occurs.
Yeah.
You start with the variance and you try to reach an alignment.
Well, or it can be just the opposite, right? So the thing that attracts me to improvisation and this kind of way of music making is that you have spontaneous form, you have spontaneous ideas, and you're not nailed down to any one thing at any given time. You can respond, you can react against something, and you can let things happen organically. And what's great is there's a sort of there's a nakedness to it. You might do something that's not exactly what you meant to do, or you might make a mistake of some kind, and your response, your performing ability might not live up to what your idea was that you wanted to try and do in the moment. And all of those things kind of add to the excitement of it, I think, that at least from the performing aspect. And it's sort of a kind of a cathartic experience in a way. So sometimes you're aligned, sometimes you're at variance, sometimes it's an argument or just a conversation. We try not to meander too much, but sometimes that happens, and there's a freedom in that, And day to day, I try not to plan too much what we're going to do. Like, we get together, we just kind of go for it a lot of times. We might say, hey, let's just try this and just see what happens and do it. And other times we just, hey, John, let's go for it.
And sometimes we even just try to surprise ourselves in various ways. For example, one time when we were doing a recording session, it was probably a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I just started playing before Joe was even ready. And so how's Joe going to react if I just started playing stuff and he didn't have everything quite set up yet? And so we had some interesting dialogue that happened at that moment.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And you guys have recorded quite a bit together over the last few months, right?
Yeah, the last couple of months
indeed.
We've been trying to be really steady about showing up and just seeing what happens in the recording studio. We don't really plan it. Like I said, we just kind of hit the record button and we play.
Yeah, that's great. And I think there's like 20 of these recordings now?
About 20, but a couple more that we haven't loaded up yet.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to make probably a SoundCloud just for our music in particular. And
up to this point, it's all on your SoundCloud.
On my page,
which is soundcloud.com/Joseph Norman Composer. Yeah.
Thanks for the plug. There's other music there, too.
We'll plug we'll plug more as the show goes on. So I need to play a PSA real quick.
Oh, sure.
And once that's over, would you guys like to actually just start playing so people know what we're talking about?
Yeah, we'll just go for it.
All right.
I got to readjust anyway.
Cool. All right. So here's a brief PSA, and then we will hear some music live in studio from Aligned at Variance.
1 in 7 Americans will struggle with addiction during their lifetime. Want to know how you can help? Go to heretolisten.com for tips and tools to help turn addiction around. A public service announcement brought to you by the Ad Council.
Yeah, as soon as you're ready, just
start. Okay.
Yeah. The PSO is pretty short. All right, that was Aligned at Variance. That's Jonathan Wilson on the tenor saxophone and Joseph Norman on the electric guitar. Okay, guys, what can you tell me about what just happened?
Well, we had to start. John wasn't ready.
I too was ready.
It looked like I was supposed to do something, so I just started doing something.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, to be honest, I intentionally let Joe set up a mood, and then I kind of follow up and try to complement that, and then, we kind of then went our own different paths while trying to listen to each other and then find spots where we could kind of, gel or blend or even try to hit a, the same pitch together.
Yeah. At least for me, what I was thinking about during that, besides just starting off doing something, is once John comes in and he starts to play, then I can sort of react maybe to the pitch language that he has, and also start to contrast my own material that I set up. So the way that I kind of look at what we were just doing was a series of maybe contrasting moments that are sort of framed by not necessarily stasis, but a character or mood within these like isolated events at any given point. And then there are some sort of transformations or maybe motivating actions that happen while we're playing together that might lead to a transformation or a change of color. So by the end, I heard John breathe into the saxophone. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay, we can just get rid of pitch now and just make some noises with strings. And
sure, and that's where your pick scrape came from.
Yeah. And so it's a sort of spontaneous reaction. And then in terms of form then, retroactively, we come from a place where we start off with like homophonic chords, happening in the guitar to a point where there's not really any pitch, and we have just these sort of noisy gestures. Mm-hmm. And so that there's an expanse there, trajectory maybe.
There was some polyphonic stuff where we have more than one line taking place at any particular time, and then eventually reading to this kind of conclusion, or in the musical world we call it a coda or codetta, depending on length, which I think the breathing and on my instrument key clicks, I think, kind of serves that closure for at least that little for the little thing we just did.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think John, he tends to play maybe with more scales or consistent collections. I tend to think more in terms of intervals in the moment and what kind of local sets I'm using. And what I'll try and do is find a unison or some kind of pitch that I can link in with John on, and then we'll trail off in opposite ways, or I'll try and relate it a little bit to what John's doing, or vice versa.
Okay. It sounds like a lot of using your ears.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That whole thing.
Right, yeah.
Really, I realize John's got a better ear, so I just let him take care of all of the gaps.
Yeah. So I've played music kind of like this with both of you before, but I'm wondering where you guys got started, I guess, playing sort of free improvised music. If you remember, maybe the first time you maybe did something like this.
Well, I think, anytime you noodle on your instrument, which goes back to, when you start learning the instrument for the first time, technically that is maybe when you first start, improvising a little bit. But we probably wouldn't take it as seriously because it's more of a kind of a fun thing where you're just warming up and wanting to hear yourself sound and things like that.
Yeah.
I would say, as far as becoming, more serious about it, it was really during my middle school years, actually, because I was in stage band back at that time, and we had different pieces where we would learn solos and start learning chords and things like that. I actually devoted a project before I went to high school on improvising, basically.
What kind of project?
Oh gosh, this was a huge project. We used to call it the Northwood Project back in those days. I was like a 4-month project where we had a question we had to answer. We had to go around interviewing and observing different things and researching extensively. It was, at that time, one of the largest projects I ever did, just because of the complexity of the things that we had to do and deadlines and things like that. It's just.
And this was for school.
Oh yeah.
And
that was school.
You were what, 13?
Basically, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Right in that age group. But yeah, I mean, that's basically where it came from. And of course, my inclination towards jazz, because I loved jazz quite a bit and played in jazz, all the way through high school, even college. So, doing that, and of course, here at the University of Iowa, being involved with the laptop orchestra and other improvisation groups that popped up here and there over the years.
I think one of the first times I actually engaged in sort of a free improvisation was actually with you and John. It was you had a thing planned for iHearIC where you had these old racist cartoons of Mickey Mouse.
Oh yeah. And, you guys were.
I remember that.
We had to play a score of sorts, I guess, reactions to these the images as they came across.
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
That was a long time
2015.
I think it was at one of the coffee houses. I think.
Yeah, we did that at
High Grounds.
Fairgrounds. Yes.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Before that, I guess my background's a little bit different than John's. I was playing guitar in heavy metal bands and stuff, and I didn't even, probably as a teenager, I wouldn't have even known what free improvisation or free jazz was. I knew jamming, if you get together with a drummer and you start making up riffs and come up with things. And that was always really fun and exciting, and some other members of the band hated it. It's like, oh, we don't want to just jam, we want to practice songs.
Yeah.
No, this is great, we should just do this.
Nice.
But and then when I went to college as an undergraduate, I was in jazz band and jazz combos. So I learned more about improvisation in that context, and then I learned a bit about free jazz and some free improvisation. And I still wasn't completely in that world. And then I guess it was more recently, I guess, when I came to University of Iowa and I encountered the comprovisers, which was the thing that you were
that was
doing.
the name of that.
And also with Laptop Orchestra, that became really interesting to me. It became kind of, like I said, exciting because of the prospect of what it can do. Like there's a catharsis and a release, and there's an immediacy that's not the same as when you're composing music. You know?
Absolutely.
When you're composing, there's a filter. You think about things, and you pace around, and you think some more, and you stress out about it.
Yeah, it's sort of like, writing a letter versus just having a conversation.
You have to say it just right, and you're really fussy about it, you know, and you worry about it, and then like there's a big day where maybe there's a performance, and hopefully everything goes right. But when you're playing and you're just in the moment, you can have an idea right then and just do it and see how it turns out. And maybe it's good, if you're. So I think part of it is there's an aspect of having fun. There's a social aspect to it. There's and then hopefully some people like the music. That's another thing.
That's a potential concern.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to have been, played some role in bringing you into this kind of music. I always find that improvising in a performance setting, like not having planned anything ahead of time, just going on a stage and making music with people, or even alone. But I've found that that's a very like confidence boosting activity. Yeah. Like just the idea that you have enough, I guess, faith in your ability to create music to just do it in front of people without having thought about it prior.
Well, you don't have time to get stressed about it.
Sure.
Those nerves, you don't get the shaky hand problem. If you just do it. If you think too much, then.
Yeah, you just gotta like shut off and go. Have you two performed live as a duo yet?
Unfortunately, we need to set something up and do something.
We are setting something up for that, yes.
At some point, at some time.
We will be.
Great. Well, I would like to have you on this series that I mentioned at the beginning of today's show. And you filled out the Google form informing me that you would like to play. So. We'll work out that at some point.
Logistics.
This month, So I need to do a weather report here in a minute. Do you guys want to play some more once I've concluded my
that'd be great.
Weather report? Okay. Let me just pull up the page here. This is everyone's favorite part of the show, is learning what's going on outside. It's currently 3:27 p.m. It's partly cloudy. It's 88 degrees Fahrenheit, but it feels like 92 degrees Fahrenheit. It's quite hot. We've got a 15% chance of precipitation and 49% humidity. 15 mile per hour winds coming from the south-southwest. According to weather.com, there may be thunderstorms in the area beginning at 9:15 tonight. If you would like to confirm the details of today's weather report, you may visit weather.com and search for your zip code. Thank you for listening to the Weather Report on July 28th. And now, another performance by Aligned at Variance. That was Aligned at Variance. Once again, Jonathan Wilson on the tenor sax and Joseph Norman on the electric guitar. And that time we got a little bit more of an electronic thing going on.
There was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so tell me about your use of electronics just then, John.
So the patch that I was using here is it's a granular synthesis patch that basically it's taking a recorded of sound samples and then taking little snippets of it at various bands of milliseconds. So sometimes it could be as low as 10 milliseconds, sometimes as high as 500 milliseconds, and then extracting from that recording, I'm manipulating that sound by either truncating it or expanding it and transposing it and having it bounce around here in this studio in a stereo configuration here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's to try to boil it down, maybe for people that don't know what you're talking about.
That was the scientific version of this.
So it records things and then it plays them back in ways that don't sound like they were recorded in.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes a very, very short chunks of what you recorded and turns it into something new. Yeah. And if you want, you could probably turn those speakers up a little bit for the next time you play.
Yeah, it was a little bit quiet.
Yeah. Do you guys do a lot with electronics when you're improvising?
We try and do something a little bit different every time. Like we try and keep it maybe 50-50. And we try like something with a different patch every time.
When you say 50-50, do you mean
no
50%
electronics
of the time?
or electronics? Yeah.
Right, because I think it's important to have experience performing in both fields and also just getting a chance to interact in different ways like that. And that can also be, not just me performing with the electronics in this case, but it could also be just Joe with the electronics, or it could be both of us together.
Yeah, or alternating.
So, just playing around with our roles in the performance. So if I'm not just a performer, what else am I doing? I'm recording sounds that will get heard from speakers and transformed and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And what I think is interesting is that, for me at least, I think of the electronics as another instrument that you're playing at any given time. It has its own unique character and playability. It has its own identity, things that it can do or can't do. And using it in a way that is aesthetically interesting to yourself, takes a little bit of practice and there's a possibility of failure.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, I think of it as just another instrument. If I'm not playing guitar, if I'm doing something with electronics, then I'm the live electronics performer. And even if it's manipulating a sound that I recorded with my guitar, at that point, it's its own instrument.
Sure. Yeah. And what's your history with using electronics in any context? I guess. Well, in music, but.
Well, I first touched a computer when I was 4 years old.
Any musical context.
Well, in a musical context, I mean, even going back to, when I was a little child, because when I was a kid, I used to, annoy the heck out of my parents every time we turned on the electronics, we were playing music, and I would always go turn it off, and they would get, they would get angry at me for doing that. They take the remote away from me. Well, but besides that, anyway, in terms of, working with electronics as a composer, I mean, that really goes back 10 years ago. During my last year at Western Illinois University, I took an electronic music class with James Caldwell, who's now retired.
I believe I mentioned him in your bio. Yes, I did.
That's right. Yeah, and that's basically where the genesis of my I'm trying to think of the word here. My beginnings in electronic music.
The genesis of your beginnings. Yes.
Right.
See, for me, I was a fan. And it was sort of electronic music was kind of mystifying to me, especially as an undergraduate. It was interesting. There are these pieces by Stockhausen, or there's Musique Concrète, there's Edgard Varèse.
Sure, like tape manipulation and synthesis.
Yeah, but it's mysterious. Yeah. So, it looks like wizardry. Like how you cut tape and splice it together. Yeah. Weird stuff happens and it somehow makes music.
The stuff they were doing.
How is this possible?
Stuff they were doing back in the 50s.
Yeah.
So divorced from what I know now.
Yeah. Well, now you have Pro Tools. You don't have to cut tape anymore.
Yeah.
Which is our productivity should be way up here for some reason. But for me, I guess I only started making electronic music probably about 5 years ago. That's when I started studying how to actually make it. I had done some experimentation with pure data before, and nothing that was of note that I would want anyone to listen to.
Sure. Yeah, and the patch that you were using when you were just playing, that's a Max MSP patch, yes?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Just so everyone knows.
Mm-hmm. Good plug for Max. It's a great thing. Everyone should use Max.
Yeah, I've played stuff with Max on this show before. So
yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. Well, the great thing is you can almost do anything you want now. If you can imagine doing a thing to a sound, you can make it happen somehow. The great thing is somebody's probably already done it, so you can find something that somebody has already done, and then Frankenstein it with something else to make it your own a little bit.
Yeah, if you're good enough at using a search engine, you can probably figure out how to do it.
It's a community. If you're on Facebook and there's other people who use Max MSP and you can talk to them.
Yeah, and the Cycling 74 forums
the forums
are a pretty good resource as well.
I think that's a great thing in terms of communication. You can meet people who do things that you are interested in doing now and just talk to them about it. Hey, this is really cool. How do you do it?
It's pretty sweet.
Can I have your patch? Usually they'll just give it to you.
Everyone's pretty generous with this kind of thing. So what kind of stuff were you doing in that class that James Caldwell was teaching?
Well, basically, it was a introduction to electronic music. So this was still after tape recording. So it was all digital. We'd worked with sampling synthesis. That was one thing that we worked with using a program called Digital Performer. It's kind of it's a system software. Sister software to programs like Pro Tools, like recording software, basically.
Okay. What was it called again?
Digital Performer.
Okay.
I believe they're still running currently.
Is that sort of like digital instruments?
It's like a multi-tracking recording software.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we worked with that, working with MIDI keyboards, and listening to Musique Concrète and getting to know a number of electronic music composers in there as well. So it gave us I think a pretty good foundation from where to go from there and branch off, at least until got to the University of Iowa, and then continue to hone and expand on that knowledge even more.
Yeah.
We got to work with Larry Fritz. That was actually my first real study of how to do things with Pro Tools. Was with Larry, the electronic music class that he had, both of them. And that was really great. I learned things I never knew before and got a chance to be creative with it at the same time and learn about gestures. Right. Lots of gestures.
Yeah, Larry's all about the gestures.
Right. Not being robotic, mechanical, or square.
Non-repetition, the non-repeatability of nature.
Free-flowing, organic, You know,
it's funny. I wondered where that came from, and then I read "In Search of Concrete Music" by Pierre Schaeffer, and I'm like, oh, the non-repeatability of nature, and it's like the whole premise of acousmatic music, I guess, that kind of developed out of musique concrète.
Yeah, man, he has a piece that was like really big for me, and I can't remember the name of it now, but it's all about these like he would compose like really short tape pieces.
The etudes, right?
They weren't the etudes. It was like. Shoot. It was like really short, like maybe 10, 30-second tape pieces, and then overlaying them on each other in different ways. And each performance was different because you could put the tapes wherever you wanted. It's by Pierre Schaeffer. It's great.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's amazing that was going on. You know, he was a really... incredibly influential, and if you get a chance to read the text ever, he has great ideas. You know, he talks about for him what was transformative was learning to cut off the attacks of sounds, the beginnings of sounds, to transform their identity in a way.
Right, when you don't have the attack, like whatever is sustained sounds like a completely different instrument.
Recognizes is
totally
changed.
Different.
So you've created a completely different scenario for people to hear. So you can take something that's recognizable, and in a way it's psychological, right? It's uncanny, and you've made something familiar into something unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And vice versa, also enriching the attacks so that they become not just that sound, but your sound because of the combination of things that you put together to make it something that's more of your own and something that's perhaps becomes more emotionally powerful.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by enriching the attack? Can you give me like an example
overlapping
of how you
it
do
with
that?
additional sounds that could come from either a similar set of sounds that you recorded, or it could come from something else that you put together and make into something more.
Sure. So like very simply, if I had a recording of you playing an F on your sax, and then I have a recording of Joe just sort of like hitting this guitar with all the strings muted, I could combine them, and that would enrich your attack.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just two sounds. It's by themselves. It's the two sounds together.
Yeah,
there's a synergy.
Them. Yeah.
Yes.
Smash them together.
The synergistic effect of simultaneous playing.
I remember the piece I was thinking of. It was not by.
It was not
Pierre
by Schaeffer.
No, it was by Henri Possu.
Ooh,
it's called Scambi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That's a great work, yeah.
Okay, so do you guys want to play a little bit more?
Yeah,
and
then we can play another thing this time.
When you're done,
let's start at the same time this time, John, and see what happens.
Yeah, when you're done, I need to play a Grant spot. But until then, here is another performance by Aligned at Variance.
Support for KRUI is provided by Little Village. Little Village is Iowa City's independent, community-supported news and culture publication. Little Village's event calendar connects readers with critical cultural opportunities. Through journalism, essays, and events, Little Village works to improve our community according to core values: affordability and access, economic and labor justice, environmental sustainability, racial justice, gender equity, quality healthcare, quality education, and critical culture. Little Village can be found in print editions at local businesses in Iowa City, as well as online at littlevillagemag.com.
Welcome back to iHearIC Radio. I'm Justin. I'm here with Aligned at Variance. That's Jonathan Wilson playing the tenor saxophone, Joseph Norman playing the electric guitar. Before that, Grant Spot, you heard them performing live here in the studio. They improvise all their music. Hey, just as like a sort of exercise, what would you title that performance that you just did?
The last one?
Yeah.
Titling is hard. You know?
It is very hard.
It forces you to conceptualize things and think deeply.
Yeah, and use a word when you weren't using words before.
Divisions.
Sure, let's go with divisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. What leads you to divisions for that?
Well, we started at the same time, and I had no idea what John was going to play, and he had no idea what I was going to play. And there's kind of forced to be reactions. And so at least from my angle here, I tried to, at differing times, pull myself away from what John was playing and play it like a contrasting texture of some kind so that it wasn't fully linked and we weren't in full coherence, at least not entirely. So in a way that there's the division, that's the opposition, but it's a division also in coherence and incoherence, or at least continuity and discontinuity, and there's a division between those two things. At least that's what came to mind. I didn't have time to think of the title, so don't hold me to it.
No, I mean, that's pretty good for like 5 seconds of thought. John, were you feeling divisions while you guys were playing as well?
I was thinking more of just kind of following what Joe was doing as kind of a canon at first, but more at the unison, where you're playing basically at the same pitch level and just following each other at first and then kind of diverging off into our own paths, which I think lends itself well to this title divisions that we're coming up with that.
So this might seem antagonistic. I was hoping that you wouldn't follow me. I was like, I'm going to do something. I hope John doesn't try and match what I play. I'm like, oh no, John's doing it. I have to change now.
Okay, yeah.
That's part of the...
So it's you chasing me, basically. John is stalking me while we're playing.
That's the hunt.
Yeah, there you go.
That's funny. So it's actually your attempts at like going along with Joe that lead to the divisions.
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad I asked because it's an interesting, look at the like in the moment thoughts that are going on while you're playing, and things you hadn't planned ahead of time.
Yeah.
And just like what's happening when you are not communicating directly
and just listening to each other and
yeah. So we are reaching, the last little chunk of today's show. We've got about 10-ish minutes left. We can go over that if we'd like. But before we, end the show, do you guys have anything like coming up or anything online that you want to plug? Any sort of things you want the people listening to this show to check out if they want more of your work?
John, you go first.
Well, I'm going to be in Decorah on August 9th. The Iowa Composers Forum is doing a summer music festival, and my piece is going to be, I have a piece called A Chamber of Mouthpieces. Basically a composition that used recordings of mouthpieces from tenor saxophone, alto saxophone, clarinet, flute, worked into an electronic work, basically. And so that's going to be played up in Decorah, Iowa on August 9th.
Nice. The Chamber of Mouthpieces. Have you considered expanding that to include mouthpieces of other types of instruments?
It's something that I have thought about.
Yeah, it'd be cool to do maybe like a series of those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, get some brass mouthpieces, get some... There's like non-musical mouthpieces too, right? like dentistry equipment or something.
Maybe a kazoo, though. That could be...
Yeah.
Duck whistles.
And that was August 9th, you said?
August 9th, yeah.
August 9th in
That's
Decorah.
a Friday.
Yeah.
Yep.
And our friend Jonah Elrod works up there. So
Yes,
maybe
indeed.
you'll see him.
Yeah.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. Anything else you want to plug before I pass it to Joe?
That's the main thing coming up.
Okay, cool. I will say that John has a website. It's jonathanjawilson.com. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, and you'll find links to his other stuff there. Joe, give me
So
your
for me,
plugs.
I don't have anything coming up exceedingly soon. I guess the big thing is just the website that has some works that have been recently recorded besides the improvisation stuff. And so I think you gave it before. It's the soundcloud.com/Joseph Norman Composer. And I'm thinking that there'll be some new things. I think I have a piece that I'm currently working on. It'll be performed at Dance Gala. I'm doing some music for Armando Duarte.
Nice.
And I've also kind of been pulled into a project now with Ramin Rochandal, and we're working with Eloy Berrigan for this project using dance and some musical, some sonification, basically, of visual data. So,
nice.
Yeah. And who knows when that'll get performed, but it's all up in the air.
Yeah, as I mentioned, Joe worked for the dance department for 3 years, so he's got lots of connections there. I'd also like to plug your Bandcamp page, if that's okay.
Oh, you can if you want. I don't charge money for music anymore. It's all on the SoundCloud.
Sure. Well, it's josephnorman.bandcamp.com.
Okay. If you want to donate money to me,
yeah, why not?
I'll take it.
Okay, and I have a few things I would like to plug before we go.
Sure.
So let's start with other people's plugs. There's some shows coming up this week in Iowa City that you might be interested in. There's, if you're listening live tomorrow night at 6:30, there's a poetry slam at High Ground Cafe. Again, tomorrow night, 6:30. On Tuesday night, July 30th at 9 p.m., Feed Me Weird Things is having their 27th concert. The headliner is Jordan Sand. She's a bassist. And the opener is Chris Wiersma, the guy that runs that series. And he hasn't performed live in quite a while, so it'll be interesting to see that. On Wednesday, July 31st at 8 p.m., Him for Her is performing at Yacht Club. That's HYMN, Him for Her. The local openers will be the Twisted Roots and Wando Family. Again, that's Wednesday night at 8 p.m. On Thursday at the Maker's Loft from, I believe, 5 to 8 p.m. This is August 1st. Vera Rose Smith is having a reception and performance for an art installation she's got going over there called Extractions. I will be performing in that with, I believe, Vero, as well as Christine Burke and Keegan Hockett. And then on Friday, August 2nd at 8:30 p.m., Precious, Henry Hank, Curt, Oren, and Jason Burkhardt will be performing at Trumpet Blossom. And skipping ahead to August 4th at Iowa City Public Library at 4 p.m., there is a writer's open mic. Now on to my plugs. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I just finished booking the venues and the dates for the iHearIC concert series for fall 2019. We'll be at Trumpet Blossom on August 30th, October 25th, and December 13th, and we will be at the Mill at the Mill on September 26th and November 22nd. Lineups for all of those will be forthcoming. Hopefully the two guys that are here in the room with me will be on one of those shows. Not hopefully, I'm pretty positive we'll get at least one of those, right? In the meantime, I have a podcast that I recorded with Christine Burke, which is available on our Patreon page, patreon.com/iHearIC. If you want to hear a concert band outside in a park in Cedar Rapids, you have 3 opportunities coming up this week. I run sound for the Cedar Rapids Municipal Band. They'll be performing at Ellis Park tonight, Knowlridge Park on Wednesday, and Guthridge Park in Hiawatha on Saturday afternoon. You can find the full schedule at crmuniband.org. I also set up a Google form for anyone that's interested in performing during the iHearIC concert season, or if you want to be on the radio show, or, whatever. It's available at our website. It's embedded there, iHearIC.com. You'll also find links to our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, Instagram, Bandcamp, iTunes, Google Play, Mixcloud, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Spotify pages on that website. And I would love for you to contact me for any reason. The best way to do so is by email, ihearic@gmail.com. All right, that's out of the way. Would you guys like to play one more time to close out the show?
Yeah,
all right.
Sure.
Once you're done, I'm going to play a track by an artist called Are You Awake, which I found on Bandcamp, and you can find it at areyouawake.bandcamp.com. But until then, Here is one last performance from Aligned at Variance.
Hi, we're the Nadas. I'm Jason.
I'm Mike.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Tony.
And you're listening to 89.7
KRUI. You're listening to KRUI, Iowa City.
Inhale, feel the rush through your body, it starts moving.
Exhale, release all your attention, your mind is soothing.